us anymore. Good deal. Well, we're just back in. This is Tony Brewer from the We Talk Truth Group, and you're listening to Cogitations. And if you would, please share this. Okay, if you're listening to this on the Ad to the Church of Christ, Acts 247 Facebook page, share this. If you're listening this to you on YouTube, listen to it in its entirety and share it. If you're listening to it on YouTube or watching it on YouTube, let it play in the background. And share it when you're done. Recommend it. Give it a like. Give it a thumbs up. So we're talking about the Christian and race baiting. And I'm going to tell you, it's a terrible thing. I ran across, or I had a confrontation with a fella that shared a meme, and the meme read, racism, the only thing white people ever invented, and they won't even take credit for that. So I'm like, come on. Whenever I posted on there, somebody, I was looking at the comments and everything, and all the people in the comments were, there were several people that were like, yeah, this is true. You know, this is just true. And I put on there like, no, this is demonstrably false. It is easy to see this is false. And somebody said, well, where's the lie? I'm like, okay, let's do this. So I went to Google, and I couldn't remember who invented, or who we give credit, who the world gives credit to, the invention of the computer, of like our modern computer, the precursor to it, and from what it was developed. And turns out it's a white dude. Yeah, a Caucasian male from England. And he invented the computer, what we know to be the computer. Now, I think that's very funny, and I think it's ironic that the person that invented the computer was white, and the very thing that this man was using to spread this lie was a computer invented by a white guy. Racism, the only thing white people ever invented, and they won't take credit for it. Folks, listen, that attitude is going to get you right into hell. What that is, that's called a race bait. And I know several men who are members of the Lord's church who are race baiters. It's bad enough when the heathen is a race baiter. But whenever a man of any race makes it all about one color, makes it all about race, that's terrible. That person's a race baiter. Sadly, this fella, whenever I said, well, this is a lie, it's demonstrably false, this meme does not represent the truth because, and I list my reasons, he changes it and he frames my statement to say that, well, I'm a racist and I don't believe that there's any racism in the United States of America. And that's the tactic of these people. When I say these people, I'm not talking about black people. I'm talking about race baiters. I just lean into this. I don't care. I am not politically correct, and I'm not going to pander to a group of people. In other words, I don't care if you call me a racist. It just doesn't bother me at all. You ain't my mama, so forget about you. That woke scold that's going around in the United States today, that you can't say anything that's offensive because somebody might label you a racist. And that's the worst thing that you can be labeled in the world. And that's a club that good people are beat over the head with. I'm just not going to live my life like that. You know, there are very few people on this earth that can actually eat me. And when I find one of them, I might watch my mouth a little bit, but I'm not going to mess with it. I was talking to some friends while I was in Canada, and we were talking about this, and I was being sarcastic, and I was like, well, I don't really see color. And my buddy that was there knew what I was doing, and we talked about that. That's got to be the stupidest thing that's ever come out of somebody's mouth. I don't see color. You're a liar. You're an absolute liar if you're so stupid that you think that you don't see color, or you're just so stupid. Listen, whenever you got two men and one's black and one's white, I mean, you can see that. You can see it. Why do we go all around the world? I was listening to a fight commentary in the MMA, and there was a black man and a white man fighting, and one had red shorts and one had white shorts. And the announcer was trying his best not to identify the particular man he was talking about as a black man. And the other announcer just said, "Why don't you just say the black guy? There's a black guy and a white guy in the ring and they're fighting. Why don't you just say the black guy?" And I'm like, yes. Who is this announcer? It turns out it's Joe Rogan from the Joe Rogan podcast. I thought that was funny, because it's true. If there's a group of men down there and there's one black guy and there's three white men, and I want the black guy to come over here, or I want to point the black guy out, well, what's the easiest demarcation? I say it's the black guy. That doesn't make me a racist. That just means I can use my eyes and I can see that one of these things is not like the other. So I say, that guy. Which guy? The black one. It's easy. That's all you got to do. It's easy. It doesn't mean I'm a racist. It doesn't mean you're a racist if you're like, yeah, that makes sense. I tell you what, racism has just about destroyed this country, and it was getting better until Barack Obama started race pandering. Barack Obama was one of the worst race baiters that's ever been. And I'm going to tell you, I said that in a podcast about voting and stuff, and I had another preacher try to tell me I was wrong. And I mean, I can't help it. Barack Obama did more to harm this country as far as race relations than any other president or any other person that's ever been, because he could have been the great uniter. He could have been the great uniter. I mean, we elected a black president, and he made it all about being black. He made every bit of it about being black. You had that hands up, don't shoot stupidity. You had this idea about black people in a being shot by the cops and stuff like that. Look, I'm not going to do your research for you. Go look at the statistics. Statistically speaking, a white male is more apt to be shot by the cops. That's just all there is to it. A white male is more apt to have a run in with the cops where gunplay is involved. Systematic racism, institutional racism, it doesn't exist. This system that we have and this institution that we have is set up to be equal. All right. Now, I understand that there is racism. But it's not set up that way. It happens because there are individuals who are racist. I was talking about this the other day. I had a fella call me about black people on lectureships. The reason there's not a lot of black people on lectureships is because when it comes to gospel preachers in the Lord's church, look at where all your lectureships are held. All the lectureships that Get Well, Memphis School of Preaching lectureships, Polishing the Pulpit, the Truth and Love lectureships, the Power lectureships. And then there's several others. Most of them are the directors. What do? The directors get people they know. Well, what if you know more what if you know more white people than you know black people? Well, then you're going to have more white lecturers. We have the NEA lectureships here in Arkansas, and I think this year there was, I'm trying to think. I don't think there was any black people on it this year. I'm trying to think. Nope, no black people on the NEA lectureship this year. Does that make me a racist? We've had black people on it in the past. Now, if I'm sitting down with Brock and we're trying to figure out who's going to be in a lectureship, do you think that if I've got 17 spots, do you think I need to figure out how to make an even mix of black people and white people? Do you think that's fair to anybody? Do you think that somebody needs to be there because simply of the color of their skin? If I do that, then I'm the racist. If I say, hey, look at me, I've got a lectureship. We have 18 spots, 9 black people, 9 white people. Well, what about the Mexicans? What about the Hispanics? What about the Asians? Well, no, that's dumb. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And incidentally, if you're a black man and you're not getting calls to speak on lectureships or gospel meetings, maybe you need to get out there more and maybe you need to be doing more work. Because let me tell you who gets called for the gospel meetings. Let me tell you who gets called for the lectureships. The people that's out there doing the work. And not everybody that's deserving of it gets recognized anyway. Because you may well be one of those people that's doing the work and never get recognized. Whenever I was in school, I did a paper on a fella named Wilkerson C. Huffman. And this dude, turns out he was amazing. Nobody had ever heard of him. Brother Mosier, my teacher in restoration studies, he asked me, he said, Tony, I've got to ask, why did you pick this guy? I said, well, when I was reading our textbook, I found his name, and the author of the textbook said that he spent the last 2 years of his life in Union City, Tennessee. All right. Well, once I got to doing research, I even drove to the library and looked through the historical archives of Union City, Tennessee. And incidentally, the Obion County and Union City is Obion County, and that's where I'm from. That's where I grew up. So I thought that was cool. Well, as far as I could see, Wilkerson C. Huffman had never even heard of Union City, Tennessee. For all the research I found, I couldn't find it anywhere where he had even been close to Tennessee or to Union City, Tennessee. So anyway, Brother Mosier said, well, that's amazing because, and he quoted some fella, and he said, that fella said that there are men in this country to whom a monument or a statue needs to be erected because of all the work they've done for the Lord that we will never hear about this side of eternity. Well, guess what, Christian? You may just be one of those people. And God bless you for it. That doesn't mean the people around you are racist. And all this foolishness about the most segregated day in the United States is Sunday. I get so tired of hearing that. Well, Sunday's the most segregated day in the United States. We have black churches, we have white churches. Listen, if people didn't want to be segregated, they wouldn't be segregated. It's kind of like vilifying McDonald's for not selling kale salads. If people wanted to buy kale salads from McDonald's, McDonald's would sell kale salads. The reason there's black churches and there's white churches is because that's what people want. And for instance, in Union City, Tennessee, there's Bishop Street and there's Vine Street. Both of those congregations are very, very, very old. If you're going to claim that the reason that Bishop Street and Vine Street are just down the road from each other and one's predominantly black and one's predominantly white, and you're going to claim that the reason that they're segregated is because of racism, then what you're saying is that they need to be desegregated. Well, let me ask you something, and I'm going to talk to the white people first. To the white people, are you going to sell your build? Now, Bishop Street's never talked about. I'm not talking to anybody at Bishop Street. I'm just saying this is a for instance. To the white people, are you going to sell your building and fire your white preacher and go down there and join yourselves and subject yourself to that black congregation and worship and act like they do? Because I'm going to tell you, it's taboo, but black congregations worship differently than white congregations. It's different. I can't help it. If you don't like me saying that, then go kick rocks. Because it's true. That's an a posteriori observation. It's a statement, a posteriori observation. It's a statement of fact. It's unget-overable. It's undeniable. Anywhere you go in the United States, a black congregation and a white congregations do things differently. Now, Both congregations do things within the parameters of God's word. But so to the white people, are you going to go down there and you're going to do things the way they do it? Or to the black people, are you going to sell your building and go join yourself to the white church and then start doing things the way they're going to do it? In other words, are you going to lose your identity? Well, what's the solution? I mean, really, give me a good solution. Give me a good solution. I guess the only good solution is both of you sell your building and you build another building. And you call it something else entirely. So now the only three options: the black church joined the white church shut down and joined the black church, or the middle option is both of those congregations dissolve and they form a new congregation. Either way, there's two congregations of the Lord's, there's congregations of the Lord's people being dissolved. And I didn't come up with this. I heard a venerable old gospel preacher say this to a young white man when the white man was kind of berating the older black man for kind of holding his feet to the fire as far as why the congregations were segregated. They're segregated because that's what they want to be. Now, I understand that the Bishop Street Church of Christ and the Vine Street Church of Christ, both of those congregations were planted during a time where there was institutional racism. It was segregation. But again, which side of that rich heritage and history do you destroy? I want to know. You see, when it comes down to brass tacks, nobody's all keen on desegregating Sunday. I hope this isn't the first time you've ever heard this, but if it is, I hope you think about it. What's the solution? I'm serious. Now, I have seen, because I'm on Facebook and I am friends with a lot of different people, I have seen a whole lot of places in the nation where there are black churches, and I've seen black lectureships with entirely black panels, with the speakers in their entirety are black. You know what I've never done? I've never been like, man, they need more white people. Now, why is that? What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Well, it's because I don't care. When somebody starts a lectureship, guess what? They're going to get the people they know. Now, I know more black people than some. So if I start a lectureship and I was only pulling from the people that I know, then over the years, the lectureship that I'm directing will have more black speakers than a lectureship that maybe somebody else is directing that don't know as many black people. Again, what's the solution? I don't know. But I know that whatever you feel like the problem is in the Lord's church is not racism. It's not racism. Somebody said here in Texas, you have Latino congregations and white congregations. Yeah. Same deal. What's the situation? What's the solution? What's the solution? Or, who's going to dismantle and dissolve their congregation and be absorbed by the other? Or are you going to dissolve both congregations and come up with an entirely new congregation? What about the elderships? Something to think about. I don't like this race baiting. I don't like it at all. I do not like it at all. Let me tell you what God says. And I didn't even talk much about the fella on Facebook. Racism. It's the only thing white people ever invented. For one, racism didn't start with white people. Number two, white people have invented way more than just a few things. You like your iPhone, you like your computer, think a white person. Anyway, Colossians 3, verse 9. Lie not to one another, seeing that ye have put off the old man with his deeds, and have put on the new man, which is renewed in knowledge after him in the image of him that created him, where there is neither Greek nor Jew, circumcision or uncircumcision, barbarian, Scythian, bond, nor free, but Christ is all and in all. There is only one race of people. That's the human race. We are all one in Christ Jesus. Christian, that's all there is to it. It shouldn't be an issue. This should be a non-issue. But sadly, because of some things in the world, this is not the case. Acts chapter 17. I'm going to start reading in verse 25. Neither is worshipped with men's hands as though he needed anything, seeing that he, that's God, giveth to all life and breath in all things, and hath made of one blood all nations of men for to dwell on the face of the earth, and hath determined the times before appointed to the bounds of their habitation. One blood. That's it. That's it. I think it's interesting that the Bay Church of Christ has supported a couple of Jamaican couples. And I've got a good friend. I'm just going to call his name. His name's Rakeetrick Ford, Key Ford. Guess what? He's a black man. Guess what? The people from Jamaica, they're black too. But the proper definition of race or ethnos or ethnicity, Key Ford, Tony Brewer, and the Jamaican man, two of them are black, one of them are white. There is a racial divide, an ethnic divide. And guess what that ethnic divide is along? What line it's along? It's not along color lines. According to the definition of ethnicity, Key Ford and Tony Brewer are the same ethnic origin, and the Jamaican man is of a different ethnicity. All right? Think about this. Let's go to, I've got this marked in another Bible. I've got to get this Bible that I'm holding right now sent off to the bindery to get it rebound. But I've got a verse marked in it right here, 24:19. Not 24:19. 24:17. Now after many years I came to bring alms to my nation and offerings. That word nation is ethnos. Paul came to bring alms to his ethnic counterparts. Not his counterparts, his ethnic contemporaries. Well, Key Ford is a black man, Tony Brewer is a white man, but we are ethnic contemporaries. The Jamaican man is not of the same ethnicity. He's from Jamaica. Do you understand what I'm getting at there? All right. Now, race baiting. We've got to quit. And if you don't, and this is to black people and to white people, dealing with this idea of a segregated Sunday, if you don't have a good solution, keep your mouth shut. Quit virtue signaling. Don't get up in a sermon as a black man in a white congregation and talk about how segregated Sunday morning is. And then not be willing to do anything about it. I've gotten to where every time I hear that, I go up to the speaker and I say, so would you quit preaching for a living and get a job at a factory if it meant that the congregation where you are would merge with the white congregation? And I do it to the white person as well. Would you quit preaching where you are and get a job at a factory if it meant the congregation where you are would merge with the black congregation? If you're not willing to do that, then shut your mouth. You're adding to the problem. It bothers me. It bothers me. It's not Christ-like. And then what makes it worse, because of the socio-political climate, you have brethren in the Lord's church, no less, putting memes on Facebook like racism. The only thing white people ever invented. And they don't want to take credit for it. bothers me, folks. If you'll allow me to appropriate the words of my brother James, these things ought not so to be. These things ought not so to be. I'm going to go to the comments section, and I'm going to go to the comments section in the added page. Good morning, folks. Good morning. Yeah, we're all human beings created in the image of God. Acts 10:34. Then Peter opened his mouth and said, in truth, I perceive that God shows no partiality. God is no respecter of persons. In the King James, I was quoting it there. There are 3 congregations here. 2 have black and white members worshiping together. Those that are white that have visited the solely black one have come away feeling unwelcome and shocked. And a white person is there, but those of from the black congregation come to the other when there's a gospel meeting. I've never understood this separation of God's people in such a small town. I mean, I'm not saying that I understand it either, but it's a thing because that's what the people want. And I suppose the solution is to do more things together. You know, I mean, if anybody comes into your assembly having the faith of the Lord Jesus Christ with respect of persons is sinful. So I've never gone into a black congregation where I didn't feel welcome. Never. So if I ever went into a black congregation or a white congregation where I didn't feel welcome, I know there's an issue there. So that's an issue that's not specifically tied to race. I don't mind worshiping with people that are different race than me. Jesus died for all. God loves all. Absolutely. And I don't mind worshiping with people of a different race than me. But again, what I said in the beginning of this podcast about black congregations worship differently than white congregations, that's just true on its face. I mean, that's easily seen. We can talk about some of the differences, but that may be a bridge too far for people. Some of the comments here. Yeah, somebody said that they didn't think I was racist at all. If I was, they don't think I'd hang out with Key Ford. I'd still hang out with Key if I was a racist. He's okay. Galatians 3:26 and 27. We're all one in Christ. Unity is the answer. Good morning, folks. I don't know what the solution is, but when you have 3 sound congregations in one town, I see an issue of division, regardless of the non-scriptural issue. I don't see an issue of division at all when there's 3 congregations in one town. I don't believe in the first century we had people pooling together to make these mega congregations. I look at the area of Jonesboro, and there's several congregations in the area of Jonesboro. And there's one that is sound in doctrine, but is not sound as far as their heart. They've shown themselves to be liars. But this one fella planted a congregation not too far from another congregation, and he caught so much flack. And if I'm not mistaken, the fella's planted 2 congregations in the Jonesboro area. And now the tapestry of Christianity in the Jonesboro area is much better because of it. I fully believe that like for the Bay Church of Christ, you know, if we hit over 100 people, I think that's a good size for a town of about 1,800. Of course, yes, I understand that you want 1,800 Christians in a town of 1,800, but what you would do is, we've got the Bay Church of Christ here, and then you could go 5 or 6 miles in another direction and plant another congregation. There's nothing wrong with that. And if it's done right, then the Christianity as a whole blossoms. I don't think, like, for instance, take the city of Jerusalem. Do we think there was only one church in the city of Jerusalem? We know for a fact that there were many different churches, congregations in the cities. And I think it's good to have 3 or 4 sound congregations in one city within a small area, because quite frankly, each congregation has its own distinct identity and personality. And it's the way God set it up. I mean, we have autonomy. But anyway, I would say it also depends on location in the country. I preached in Pensacola for 7.5 years. There were white congregations. There were black congregations where I was had both. And I'm thankful for that experience. There are only 2 groups of people in the world, the saved and the lost. I truly believe that many Christians have allowed our liberal media and politics to influence them in their thinking on this subject. And that absolutely have. They absolutely have. And that's the issue. We've allowed the race baiting of the liberal left to infiltrate the Lord's church when we have gospel preachers sharing memes like racism, the only thing white people ever invented, and they won't take credit for it. And this one fella says, this one brother says, and congregations in the same town hardly have anything to do with each other. Yeah, again, that's not jointly participating in things. That's a problem in and of itself. When I say jointly participating, I'm not saying that you have to, like the First Street Church of Christ and the Fifth Street Church of Christ have to come together for a joint gospel meeting. But what I mean is the First Street Church of Christ and the Fifth Street Church of Christ, when the First Street Church of Christ has a gospel meeting, nobody from the Fifth Street Church of Christ goes to support it or anything like that. So, I mean, there's some issue there, but I think it's absolutely fine having multiple congregations in multiple places in the same town. I guess you would have to have multiple congregations in multiple places. But anyway, you know what I mean. Ephesians 2:14, for he is our peace, who hath made both one, and hath broken down the middle wall of partition between us, having abolished in the flesh the enmity, or in his flesh, the enmity. So the issue between Jews and Gentiles that arise were put to rest when the wall was broken. So, Tony, would it be safe to say that the middle wall of partition today is racism, has to be broken down today as well? Well, yes, depending on what you mean by that. I personally don't believe that the Lord's church has as much racism as people want to claim. And this is the whole point about the talking so long about these white churches and black churches. Here's what people do. They look at a city that has a black church and a white church, and they say, the reason they have a black church and a white church is because of racism. I put forth to you that is not the reason. It's not the reason. Just like if I have a lectureship and I have 18 spots and there's 15 white speakers and three black speakers, it's not because of racism. It's just because I know much more white people and I know black people, or black preachers and I know white preachers and I know black preachers. I guess what I'm trying to say is we've tried to become judges of people's intent. We've tried to become judges of the thoughts and intents of the heart of people's minds, as opposed to just accepting the way things are. You know, if I see the Get Well lectureships and there's, I don't know how many speakers there are. We'll say there's 10. 10 is an easy round number. If there's 10 speakers and there's 8 white people and 2 black people, I don't think the director of that lectureship is a racist. And I don't think there's only 2 black people because of racism. I just assume, hey, these are the people that they've gotten this year. This brother says in my first comment, I should have clarified, I have heard of a church plants in the same area and that was excited for them. It is just when they seem to have nothing to do with one another. Yes, that's the core problem. I'm in total agreement with you. If there's 3 congregations within 10 miles of one another, all within 10 miles of one another, and they don't have anything to do with one another, what does that say? What does that say to the world about Christianity? Well, it doesn't say anything good. I'll tell you that. So I'm with you, brother. Yes. It's almost like you have to be ashamed of being white, or you are considered a racist these days. That's it. That's exactly what it is. And back to race baiting. What about this Little Mermaid movie? I think it's Halle Berry is going to play the Little Mermaid. Man, that's awesome. Halle Berry's a good actress. She's beautiful. Now, I'm going to tell you, as a Christian, when it comes to the Little Mermaid in the flesh and blood, I think the Little Mermaid is immodest and not good. That I hope, how are you going to clothe the Little Mermaid in modesty? But that's a lesson for another time. But there were all kinds of, it was trending on Twitter, and people were like, all you white people that can't stand the Little Mermaid being black, whatever. And most of the white people were like, we don't care. It's a Disney remake. We hate Disney remakes. But we don't care whether or not the Little Mermaid is black or white. Little Mermaids aren't black or white. One says, I hear you loudly. I'm of mostly European and Native American descent. I married a Mexican. Roca Fuerte, my church, is strong here in Texas, and in Mexico I have trouble seeing through these issues of the border wall because my Christian brothers and sisters are south of the Rio Grande. Yes, well, see, that's another thing, and I appreciate your contribution here, but the liberal left in the United States would take away the identity of the United States. God set up borders. Borders are a godly thing. The people, Mexicans who claim Christianity cannot come here illegally. They have to come here legally. So your brothers and sisters south of the border, whether there's a wall or not, it doesn't matter. Their temperance, their Christianity would keep them out. They would only come through legally. That's the thing. There has been 2 splits in the churches of Christ that I attend, and I'm only 31 years old. That's pretty sad if you've seen 2 in your lifetime. One's because they wanted to add instruments. Well, now that's good. It's not good they wanted to add instruments. Let me clarify. One was because they wanted to add instruments into worship and eventually change the name of the congregation to Livingstone's Church. I don't consider that a split. What I consider a church split is you got a 100-member congregation, 50 of them want red carpet and 50 of them want blue carpet. That's a split. And if a bunch of people leave because one wants red carpet and the others want blue, that's a split. This other Church of Christ congregation, this other congregation of the Lord's church won't talk to us because they think we are liberal because we allow potluck after service and allow a lady to make the bulletin. They only allow strictly men to do everything outside of worship, and they don't allow a baby to eat a snack in worship. Preacher won't talk to us, and and talks bad about it. Well, he needs to quit talking bad about it. They need to understand what the difference between judgment and law is. All right. Well, I think we've exhausted the comments, and somebody said, know your privilege. And they gave me a emoticon, or an emoji, I guess I should say. Emoticon is so 1990s. They gave me an emoji that's sticking its tongue out at me. Yeah, check your privilege. Know your privilege. Let me tell you something. I wish, I'm going to be done there. The only privilege that I have is that I was adopted out of a bad situation into a family that had a present father and a present mother. That is the greatest thing that you can ever do for somebody, is give them a home with a father and a mother. Anyway, I hope that this hasn't been too terribly controversial. I hope that you have listened to what I have to say, and I hope that if you're listening to me and you have had these ideas about so much terrible racism in the Lord's church before, that you might rethink that attitude and just deal with people based on who they are. Red and yellow, black and white, it don't matter. If I like you, I like you. If I don't like you, I don't like you. There's a lot of white people I don't like. There's a lot of black people I don't like. And I'm saying black and white because that's the two easiest lines of demarcation, or that's the two easiest dichotomies, two easiest classes of people, I guess. That's the one that's in your face the most. But it really doesn't matter to me what your skin color is. Not at all. We need to build on facts. Christians are fact-based people. We've got to go on fact. So, quit race baiting. Don't share memes that are race bait memes. Don't share memes that are going to promote this narrative that the United States of America is some broken racist system. It is not. There are racist people in the United States of America, but the United States of America is not a broken and racist system. Anyway, so I'm going to get off here. I hope, don't forget that these are on YouTube. Go to Cogitations Podcast. Look up Cogitations Podcast on YouTube. Subscribe, and you can watch these videos there, and you can share them with your friends there. Just another way to get the word out. I may try to do some extra added content exclusive to the YouTube channel. Go to Podbean and subscribe. Listen to these things on Podbean. And if you like what we do and you want to help us out, you can go to www.patreon.com/near churches. And that's all I've got here. God bless you. And we will see you on the flip side.